sponsoring the football season. They sponsored the baseball season, and they re-upped, and that's why we're down here in the general vicinity. We're in Burlington, Iowa, as we're talking to Coach Chiprez of the Notre Dame Knights, who just got back from a trip to the state tournament. Your second in 3 years?
Our last one was in 23.
So 23. I was up there with you there too.
Yeah.
It's so exciting for your team to have a season like that where you get to go there. You had the #1 ranking last year, and Sigourney tripped you up in the sub-state. They had the #4 ranking this year, and you tripped them up at the state. And so you got a little jab at each other.
Yeah.
But I guess my first question to you is, we still have Moravia's coach in there. I can't remember what his name is, but he's a great baseball guy. Got you, Coach Crawford. Pekin seems to be a pretty steady. Highland seems to be pretty steadily, and Hillcrest seems to be pretty steadily always in the tournaments. That's where I seen you with Kyoto as another team you run into in the tournaments, and always want to get you on. But I never have to worry too much because you're always there in the playoffs, deep into the playoffs.
We try to be.
You probably actually won more playoff games in the last 5 years that we've been Round Guy Radio than probably any other school in any other sport.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know, since I took over in 2019, we've been to the state tournament 3 times. In 2020, 2023, and then this year. So it's kind of a every 3-year trend, it seems like lately. But there's really good baseball in Southeast Iowa. I kind of went back today and was looking from 2019 when I took over. There's been a member of the Southeast Iowa Super Conference has been at the state tournament every single year since then. So it's been, and we've had a state champion with New London back in 2022.
Yeah, that's the only team that's won a state championship, and I guess I was going to talk to you about this, but this is as good a time to transition or segue. Cooper Schulte of New London was drafted by the New York Mets in this last draft, and I'm sure you played him a time or 2 or 10. I know you played him that year they won the state championship. You were the only team that came close to beating them at all in the playoffs that year.
Yeah, I think 22, we played them up there in, I believe it was the second round, or it might have been the district championship. I don't know. We lost 5-0, but they had, I can't think of the kid's name, that third baseman on the mound that year, and he threw hard and he shut us out. But Cooper's a kid that. I've kind of watched him grow up. My younger son Carson, they played on that junior Blackhawks team, where Justin Schulte and Ron Walker, who's down in Van Buren right now, they coach that. So Carson got to play with him for a couple years, and then just watching him, grow through the years. I thought he made a tremendous growth from, I want to say, like his sophomore year to his junior year. We were just talking about him the other day as a coaching staff, and just the jump he made, I thought, from his sophomore year to his junior year, as far as baseball skill was out of this world, and he's a kid that just eats, sleeps, and breathes baseball, and he's worked his butt off, and this is the result of all his hard work is getting drafted by the Mets.
Well, you got when Hayden Fry came to Iowa, they hadn't had a winning tradition. And he changed their uniforms to look like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was the Super Bowl champions. And he told the players, first time, you got to look like a champion, and then you become a champion, And then as I'm looking here at this beautiful field that you have, it is such a nice, gorgeous facility. So you seem to have the facilities that it would take to be a winner. So tell us a little bit about this absolutely gorgeous, very green ballpark that has beautiful bullpens, and it's like a kind of a professional setup.
So this has been a labor of love for the last ongoing 6 years. I know this guy's not going to let me talk about him too much, or he doesn't want me to talk about him, but Rodney Brent, back in 2019, he came to Coach Worth and I and asked us what we envisioned for Weingart Field, and we kind of, said this is what we want, this is what we envision, and within a year, this guy made it happen. We got the field laser graded, everything was tore up. We had a professional guy come in and laser grade the infield. We resodded it. And then every year since, we've added something, to the field, whether it's new fencing. We added the shed over here, the equipment shed, the press box, and one of the last things we're looking to do is build new dugouts and add a clubhouse to the back of our home dugout. But we've had such great volunteers as far as like parents, dads, just members of the community that want to come out and help with this field. But it's, like I said, it's a labor of love. I mean, I live out here from about April to probably October-ish. Even after the season, you still got to take care of it.
Yeah, you're still here. That's where I had to meet him here at the ball down.
Yeah, so it's a work in progress, but it's something that we want to make sure that the kids are proud of.
Kids in this area like Cooper Schulte, they've got fields like this to play on. Then they've got an outstanding junior college in SEC to play at, which Cooper Schulte availed himself to. You got the Burlington Bees Prospect League, which he also played in, and then he wound up being the shortstop for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Probably didn't hurt his status. You got also Nate Smithburg of Fairfield was drafted by the Tampa Bay Rays, and this guy Keaton Wynn, his shirt on this Keaton Wynn shirt, got from his sister in the garage.
Did you?
Yeah. He's from Raleigh, Iowa. He's pitching for the San Francisco Giants, and he's doing a fantastic job in that bullpen up there. So we are having some kids filtrate, and maybe this is starting to be an area where the scouts maybe do need to scour a little bit. Let's transition and talk a little bit about this year's team that you had. Tell us a little bit about the team. Just who was some of the big players and maybe the pitchers, hitters. Sure. It was certainly a full team effort because you know how it is, and to go deep in the ball, your number 9 here has got to be strong.
Yeah. I mean, the season didn't start out too well. We went 1-4. We got beat by Newman and Columbus Catholic up in the Iowa City Catholic tournament. And then we end up getting beat later on, or I guess prior to that, we got beat by Minneapolis and Central Lee that first week. So we started out 1-4, not something that we were hoping for or looking for, but we had a heart-to-heart with our guys, and they really put their nose to the grindstone, and I don't think they like that 1-4 start. The thing I was proud of most about our team through the season was their growth and their maturity. I think that got them through a lot of different situations and a lot of adversity throughout the season, and that's why we won our last 16 out of our 17 games, to close out the season. Obviously we got tripped up there by South Winneshek in the state tournament, but again, I thought that was a winnable game that that didn't happen.
I think every year I see the umpiring in the regular season is pretty stellar. I might disagree with the call here or there, but in that 6th inning, you got a kid up with 2 outs, and there's a ball, like this far and then this far outside, called strike 3 on him. You just sometimes, and in Minneapolis last year, they get a guy on first base and they call him out, and it's just sometimes just a little play like that can ruin your whole season.
Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about the umpiring. Obviously everybody's going to make mistakes. Even the big league umpires make mistakes. What we tell our guys is control what you can control. And unfortunately we had some things that we could have controlled that we didn't control in that game against South Winneshek that ended up coming back to bite us in the butt. But it was a good game. It was a good baseball game.
It was a great game. I was loving it. Yeah, it was a close game, and you had other chances to score, and they had other chances to score, and you stopped them when you needed to, and it was back and forth, and a lot of times even in this first round of state tournament you can get some pretty lopsided games.
Right.
But this was close. Well, what's it feel like to get to go to state? Because I've been doing this for 5 years. We've got one state champion. We've had one. Waco got to the state championship game. Moravia's Round Guy Radio adjacent. So they may get a state championship game, but Burlington's been to the state tournament in basketball, I think, and just here and there's. New London's made it in basketball, but getting past the first round is we don't get that very often. But just to get there, man, tell us a little bit about What do you think? What do you think you and those other teams that were great that you played along the way didn't get to go?
You know, it's something that obviously, you know, at the beginning of the year, that's what you talk about. I think that's what you know, that's we've kind of focused, like early on in my career, you know, we focus, you know, it is our goal to get to the state tournament. You know, we kind of revised that over the last like 3 years, at least in our program. You know, it's not a goal to get to the state tournament; it's an expectation. You know, the goal is to win a state championship.
Yeah, that's
you know, so you know, sometimes it happens, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, and I think, you know, it's all about how you prepare and how you handle adversity. I feel like, you know, during the postseason, you know, like sometimes teams just get hot at the right time, you know, and that kind of carries you through the postseason, you know. But you know, once you get up there and you play, you know, obviously guys are going to have nerves. I mean, that's just normal. Whether you're 42-0 or 40-0 or whatever it may be, you know, you're going to have nerves. And I mean, look at this year's state tournament. I mean, 2 years in a row, the number one seed has been knocked out of the first round. I mean, it's you just never know. You know,
it's baseball, and in baseball, I mean, it's, you know, the best team loses 54 games in the majors, and the worst team wins 54 games. You know what I mean? It's 54 games in the middle, but you know, everybody wins games, and you just never know. You know, it's like Joaquin Andujar said about baseball. I tell you in one word: you never know.
Right.
And you never know.
Right.
And but we do know that you're always going to have a good team, and you're always going to take them to the playoffs prepared to go. And you got them there this year. I know you don't have a lot of time, and Scott Mason's wife was calling him to come home for supper while I was interviewing him. And I don't want to get you in trouble with your wife anymore, but I'll ask you just a few quick questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about the pitching from the team.
You know, our pitching was great. You know, Tatum Warner, you know, he was probably our number one this year. He's a junior. I think he was 8-1 or 9-1, something like that. Not a big kid, but you talk about a kid that just pumps strikes and just pounds the zone. He was that guy, you know. In 1A baseball, if you can throw strikes and not walk people, that's gonna help you out tremendously in games, and that's what he did. He just pumped strikes. I would guesstimate he probably threw 78 to 80 miles an hour. Had some nice off-speed pitches. Could locate balls really well. You know, he was our number one. You know, and then you had our senior Payne Protsman, you know, who's been a varsity starter on the mound for 4 years for us. He probably threw low to mid 80s. You know, unfortunately, he was suffering from a groin injury that he sustained in the playoffs, so he wasn't at 100% on Monday against Southwind. But again, not making excuses. Just he was a guy that, you know, he was kind of he came in after Tatum did. You know, I thought that was a good mix with, you know, upper 70s to 80s, and then you bring a guy that throws a little harder. You know, it was a good mix there, I thought. You know, and then you have Landry Halbrechter. He was a senior. You know, he had some big wins for us this year at Waterloo. I think he pitched against Davenport West. I think he threw like a 1 or 2 hitter against them. And then Garrison Reed, you know, he's a freshman. He did a good job. He didn't throw a whole lot. He threw a lot more in the regular season than the postseason. But those were kind of our dudes. You know, we also had a freshman, Hudson Neely, a lefty, kind of a slower guy, was velocity wise, but he was another guy that threw nothing but strikes.
Tell me a little bit about the defense.
So, you know, defense, you know, was pretty standard. You know, you had Curtis Randall at first. You had usually Tatum Warner at short, Garrison Reed at second, and then you had Payne Protsman at third. However, that would switch up if, depending on who was pitching. You know, you had Payne pitching, Garrison Reed would move over to third. If you had Tatum pitching, Garrison moved to short. Sometimes we'd bring Maddox Dewald into second base from the right field. He did spend a lot of time in the infield this year just because of our pitching, you know, the way it was. But I thought they did a really good job, you know, with making plays. They grew a lot through the season. Coach Chip, my oldest son, he's our infielders coach and hitting coach. He really does a good job with getting those guys prepared. And you know, every single day, you know, we're working on dailies with the infielders, and we spend probably 30 minutes a day just doing infield stuff, while outfielders are working on outfield stuff and catchers are doing what they're doing, you know. So I thought they did an excellent job. You know, we're going to have to replace one guy, you know, and that's Payne. We're going to have to find a third baseman next year.
Well, I'm sure you'll be capable. I'm sure you got a bunch of young and up and comers who are not unhappy that there's a spot on the field that they can try to grab for themselves. Well, what about your hitting? How'd your hitting go this year?
You know, our hitting going into going into the state tournament, I believe we were hitting 373 as a team. What I was really proud of is our on base percentage. It was not well over 500, but
If
I
it's
think
over
it was
500,
like
that's incredible.
516, something like that. So we were doing a good job, you know. Another thing that I was proud of with our guys, you know, we were leading the state in all classes in the fewest strikeouts, you know. Again, Coach
Well,
Chip,
that's why you went to state tournament right there.
those
And
guys,
that
they
makes
out.
it. I mean, that's if you had of all the things you told me, you know, they're not striking out. You know, I mean, there's just so many times when you got a runner at third base and just a ground ball to second base scores him, or you know, or just keeps the inning going somehow. Well, Coach, I think that's about all I got. I could ask you about base running, but I could stand here and talk to you till midnight too. So, because I love to talk about baseball. Is there anything we need to talk about that you want to talk about?
No, you know, just, you know, I mean, you know, we're gonna miss our four seniors that we have, you know, with Eli Olson and Landry Hobrechter, Payne, Protzman, and then River Fife. You know, that's a lot of offense that we're losing, a lot of stolen bases that we're losing. I mean, that's probably 50 plus stolen bases out of those two guys, in Eli and Landry, and just, you know, just the leadership that we're gonna lose with losing those guys. You know, it really hurts. But the good news is, you know, I think the younger guys, you know, they kind of fed off that, learned from those guys, and I think there's several guys ready to step up and lead us next year.
Well, we've been talking to Notre Dame's coach, Coach Chiprez. Is it West Burlington with you, or they got their own team?
They have West Burlington has
They have their own team. So it's the Notre Dame Knights who, we're here in Burlington, Iowa, and this is the epicenter of high school sports. You know, you guys' basketball team was outstanding this year, and the football team, and you know, just a crazy level of interest in high school sports down here, and your team was leading the way this year. Thank you for your time, and congratulations on another outstanding season.
Thank you.